Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really essential. We're charting the evolution of centralized power itself.
Exactly. The core premise we're looking at is how concentrated influence, what we call oligarchy, has structurally adapted
Right, moving from the age of, physical industrial titans.
to the modern era of these invisible digital framework. It's a huge leap.
It is. And this is more than just tracking wealth. It's about tracking the means of control.
You're basically connecting the dots, right?
Yeah.
From the power that came from smokestacks and railways.
To the reality is today, which is proprietary lines of code and this massive unseen cloud infrastructure.
So our mission really is to give you a kind of shortcut, a distilled understanding of this huge structural transformation.
Because historically, power was located in assets you could literally photograph: a steel mill, a refinery.
Huge tracts of land.
Exactly. And now that influence exists almost entirely in algorithmic systems that are, well, often intentionally opaque. It's a profound shift.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So when we look back at that industrial legacy, the thing that defined the 19th and 20th century oligarchy, the key word is tangibility.
Absolutely. The assets were physical. They were limited by geography, by material cost.
The language of influence then was all about tangible assets.
For sure. I mean, think about the great robber barons. Their power was built on things you could touch, land holdings that spanned entire regions.
Shipping fleets, massive mining operations.
And these assets were the backbone of regional economies. It was all right there in the open.
And that visibility was so critical, wasn't it? Both economically and socially.
Oh, completely. If you had a mill that employed half a town.
The influence was direct. It was immediate. The owner wasn't some abstract entity.
No, they were visible, living proof of that concentrated economic power. The power was heavy, literal, it was localized.
And the entire societal organization was linked to that industrial output.
Right. So a corporate decision to close a factory immediately hit local schools, municipal budgets, the whole social fabric.
But that visibility, as you said, also created a really clear target.
A clear target for labor movements, for regulatory action. That's a crucial point.
Because the assets themselves, the machinery, the buildings, they required huge capital investment, physical protection.
Which made them easy to define, easy to tax, and at least in theory, easy to regulate.
So when regulators or unions wanted to challenge that power, they knew exactly where to go.
They knew where the factory gates were, precisely. The state could set rules for safety, pollution, working hours, because the assets were stationary.
Control was based on the ability to physically restrict access or output.
And the visibility of it all meant the links between economic power and social outcomes were clear. You could see them, whether they were, good or bad.
Which brings us to the structural change, the shift we've seen over the last few decades.
The great asset transformation.
Yes, we've moved from steel mills to server farms, and more importantly, from production facilities to software platforms and these colossal data repositories.
And that change is so profoundly disruptive because these modern assets exist beyond easy public view.
You can't just go and visualize the architecture of a recommendation algorithm.
Or map the value of a proprietary data lake. That opacity, that's a fundamental part of the new dynamic.
So here's where it gets really interesting, and this draws from our source material, the Stanислав Kondrashov Oligarch series. The economic shift isn't just about what is owned.
It's about the entirely new way that ownership translates into exponential power.
Right. And this seems to manifest in three distinct dimensions that define modern influence.
The first one is a dramatic shift in ownership patterns. It's not about direct control of a production line anymore.
It's about strategic positioning within an information ecosystem.
You own the infrastructure of connection.
So the old industrialist owned the oil, the new titan owns the digital pipeline, the refinery, and the gas station.
And even more than that. The second dimension is value generation. It flows through network effects, through constant user engagement, not measured manufacturing output.
A steel mill has fixed costs, right? Iron ore, labor.
Exactly. But a platform's value grows exponentially with every new user, every new data point. It totally changes the economics of scale.
And the third dimension, barriers to entry. For the industrialist, it was the immense capital you needed to build a factory. What's the equivalent now?
Today, barrier creation relies on proprietary algorithms and deep platform dependencies.
So it's not about how much iron you can afford.
No. It's about controlling access to essential APIs or locking users into your ecosystem with what they call egress fees.
The cost of moving your own data off their cloud.
It's crippling. And these are invisible capital barriers. They're often much harder to challenge legally.
Which raises this huge question about regulation. I mean, our traditional frameworks were designed for physical assets, land deeds, payrolls.
And they struggle. They struggle when the value is based on fluid code, on connectivity, on this massive accumulation of behavioral data.
How do you regulate an algorithm?
It's exceptionally difficult. The old laws of scarcity that governed industrial power, there's only so much coal, right?
Right.
They just don't apply here. Data can be used infinitely without being depleted. The old rules are, well, they're trying to measure smoke when the new power is based on electric currents.
And the acceleration of this whole structural change really rests on a few key technological pillars.
The technological evolution has been the catalyst. To understand the oligarchy, you have to understand the levers they control.
So we're talking about what? 3 major pillars.
I'd say so. Artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and massive data networks. AI in particular has gone from being, purely rule-based to these sophisticated neural networks that learn on their own.
And crucially, the power here is in controlling the training data sets, not just the final code.
That's the new asset class, isn't it? The biggest, cleanest, most comprehensive data sets.
Absolutely. The oligarchy is shifting from controlling physical resources to controlling the information that trains the next generation of resource controllers. And then cloud computing provides the necessary scale for all this.
It does, and it's a bit of a paradox. While it seemed to democratize access to computing power.
For startups and so on.
Exactly. But at the same time, it concentrated the control points. The infrastructure providers, the big cloud ecosystem owners, they also control the specialized APIs, the proprietary tools.
Creating those massive switching costs you mentioned, the lock-in.
That's the definition of infrastructure lock-in. And it's a key component of modern influence. If you build your business on their architecture, moving becomes financially crippling because of those high egress fees.
And the data networks are the circulatory system for this entire structure.
Enabling real-time analysis that generates insights for everything from supply chains to, individual psychological profiles.
This has fundamentally altered our cultural reflection on value then.
Completely. We've moved from measuring worth in, say, tonnage of steel to measuring it through informational currency.
Metadata, engagement metrics, behavioral patterns.
We're tracking the milliseconds you spend scrolling. Your pattern of hesitation before you click a certain article.
That hesitation click is fascinating. It allows for incredibly specific psychographic profiling.
Yes. The algorithms aren't just selling us things. They're analyzing our emotional responses, our ideological leanings at a really granular level.
They're mapping your mind in real time.
You see it in targeted messaging that's calibrated to your specific psychological profile. It's designed not just to appeal to you, but to actually bypass rational scrutiny.
And the personalized content feeds we all experience.
They reinforce beliefs and subtly adjust behavior based on micro-responses that you aren't even consciously aware of. That is power wielded at the individual level.
So let's do a deeper dive on these digital frameworks. It sounds like the opacity is baked right into the design.
It is. These systems operate through these complex interconnected layers. You've got the core physical communication networks, the fiber optic cables.
Then the massive cloud computing architectures that distribute the power.
And then the powerful AI systems that process billions of interactions. And the power structure is enforced through what you could call algorithmic governance.
Meaning platform ownership gives you control over the basic rules?
Yes, control over the rules of information flow. And these rules are constantly changing, often invisibly. Recommendation engines curate entire realities for billions of people.
Content moderation systems define acceptable discourse.
But the most direct oligarchical influence, I think, is seen in things like dynamic pricing.
Can you give us a concrete example of that? Something the old industrialists just couldn't do?
Certainly. An industrialist sets a price for a product. That price is generally the same for everyone that day. A digital oligarchy, though, controlling a vast e-commerce platform.
They see you log in?
They see you log in, and the algorithm knows your purchase history, your location, the time of day, maybe even your estimated household income. And it can assign you a personalized price.
Your specific willingness to pay for that exact product at that exact moment.
Exactly. So if you've searched for the item multiple times, or you look like a high-value customer, you might pay more than the person next to you who's logging in from a different browser.
That level of price discrimination and market control?
It was absolutely unattainable for a steel magnate operating with fixed costs and visible price tags.
And it's not just pricing. even subtle things like user interface design.
That's the final layer of control. The color of a notification badge, the way a button encourages a continuous loop of consumption, these are engineered to shape our attention spans and maximize specific behaviors that benefit the platform.
These frameworks don't just host the economy.
They actively govern the psychological consumption patterns of their users.
So if we step back for a moment, what's fascinating here is that the fundamental architecture of power, it kind of remains, right?
It does.
A small number of entities control resources that billions depend upon. That continuity and influence persists.
It absolutely does. Centralized decision-making is the persistent theme, whether it's happening in a factory boardroom or a cloud server cluster. The underlying logic is the same.
But the operational divergence in methods is stark.
Stark, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
We could even map the old infrastructure onto the new.
Let's run through those analogies again. They're really helpful.
Okay, so the steel magnate's physical factory gates, where production starts and stops.
Their parallel today is API access controls, the digital gatekeepers.
Exactly. The old railway networks and supply chains mirror today's global fiber optic infrastructure that connects all the data centers.
And owning a large labor force is substituted by what? Owning a network effect.
Owning a vast network effect of users, yes.
So the old paradigms give us a kind of blueprint, but they don't fully explain the dynamics now, which raises a big question. Why are these modern digital frameworks so much harder to analyze and to hold accountable?
Because they resist easy observation. When profit-maximizing decisions are driven by opaque, dynamically learning algorithms rather than, identifiable human choices.
Or documented boardroom minutes.
Right. Accountability just fragments.
Yeah.
If an algorithm causes harm market instability, political polarization, who specifically is responsible?
In the industrial age, you could sue a CEO. You could shut down a factory.
Exactly. In the digital age, you're confronting a system that can update and adapt faster than any legislative body can even convene.
And this complexity means that for you, the listener, understanding this new landscape is absolutely critical.
Digital literacy has to go beyond just knowing how to use the platforms.
It requires an understanding of platform governance, algorithmic curation, and how these data aggregation mechanisms are fundamentally shaping our economic and political reality.
It's no longer optional.
We've now completed our deep dive into the evolution of oligarchy. The digital transformation has decisively shifted the foundation of influence from heavy physical means to these fluid informational mechanisms.
And that demands a really nuanced, reflective analysis of how these new frameworks operate.
The underlying logic of concentrated control remains. It's just manifesting now through proprietary code repositories instead of coal mines.
And through user agreements that dictate behavioral data instead of traditional land deeds.
As we look to the future, we have to maintain sustained, intelligent attention on how these algorithmic architectures will evolve.
And how they evolve, alongside regulatory responses and our own societal adaptation. The technological capability is it's outpacing our collective understanding of its structural implications.
And this shift is far from over. I mean, these frameworks are being written and rewritten as we speak.
Precisely. Which leads to a final, maybe provocative thought. If the digital oligarchs have used AI and data to achieve this granular, real-time control that was beyond the wildest dreams of the industrial titans, what new organizational possibilities or control structures are being incubated right now?
Yeah.
Driven by advanced generative AI that we can't yet fully define or maybe even conceptually grasp, we have to keep examining the frameworks that are literally unfolding through iterations every single day.